Welcome to the Mohawk Valley Sportswatch. Thanks for making us part of your Sunday morning here. We'll see who's joining us this morning here, if Pags or Coach Medicis or the stat man's going to jump on, but I got a great show for you here this morning. A lot of local sports. We'll kick it off at about 9:10 with one of my former teammates. He's been on the Rock Pile. He's been on the Mohawk Valley Sportswatch a handful of times. Jimmy Catanzaro, the head coach of Lake Forest College, who's got his team undefeated. They'll participate and start next week in the Division III college football playoffs. So we'll talk to Coach in a little bit. At the bottom of the hour, at about 9:30, we'll talk to Whitesboro Head Football Coach Curtis Schmidt, who Whitesboro with a big win on Friday night. They beat Horseheads. They had a nice goal line stand there at the end of the game to seal that victory. And we'll have Coach on at about 9:30. They'll play next week. And then at about 9:50, I'm excited to talk to Mackenzie Welter. We'll talk some RFA Field Hockey on a great run to the state Final Four. We'll talk to Coach in just a little bit. So we're jam-packed here this morning. Not sure how much other stuff I'll be able to get into, but it was a wild world of college football yesterday. And Wednesday, we'll do it again. I'll do the Chalk Talk on Wednesday. Seems to be going over well the last couple of weeks. We'll dive into the new 12-team playoff. I don't know who's going to be in it. I can tell you that much for sure. Ole Miss went down yesterday. How about Alabama? Went down to Oklahoma last night, 24-3. It was a great game plan by Brent Venables in Oklahoma at home, 24-3. And then the night game, Auburn in 4 overtimes beat Texas A&M, who you'd have to think now A&M's out, but they'll have a big rivalry game next week against Texas. The game next Saturday at high noon, Michigan, Ohio State. I got to go back and think because this Michigan, Ohio State game, I think the early line last week that I saw was Ohio State minus 24.5. And Ohio State should win that game next week. They should absolutely destroy Michigan next week. So my wife will be happy. The Ohio State fans can laugh again and say, we beat Michigan. It's been 3 years since they beat them. But they'll have bragging rights. But you know what? One of the things about these rivalry games, and if you follow any sport, throw the records away because it's a rivalry game. Now, I'm not doing any score. I don't believe in doing the score comparison. Like, okay, Michigan played Northwestern, beat them 50-6. Ohio State played Northwestern and beat them 31. I don't look at that stuff as a coach, and even as a fan, I don't say that because that's backfired before. I've looked at that. Michigan just doesn't have a quarterback, but they got the quarterback coming in next year. Bryce Underwood, the quarterback, the 5-star, the #1 rated quarterback in the country, is coming to Michigan. Now, he's coming at an expense. He's coming at a high expense, but he did flip from LSU. And I don't know what's going on with LSU, but they've just been spiraling downhill. I think Brian Kelly's in trouble at LSU. But Bryce Underwood comes to Michigan, and there's a whole group of kids that have flipped now and are coming to Michigan. So I think Sherrone Moore gets another year because of, because of the recruiting class. But we'll see. But that game next week at high noon, I am excited for that. Always excited for Michigan. I just wish they had a little bit more of an offense. But yesterday against Northwestern, they went old school Michigan football. They ran the ball. Donovan Edwards, Mullings, I mean, they ran the football for over 250 yards, and that's the Michigan of old. But we'll see what happens. But Tuesday night, they'll release the college football rankings again. They'll release the 12-team playoff, who's going to be in it. I'll tell you what, Notre Dame looks really good. I know it was Army, but Army was 9-0 ranked. They beat Army. They beat Navy. They're going to get USC this coming week in a rivalry game there. And not many people still talking about that NIU loss that Notre Dame had early in the year. I think Notre Dame's a lot better. I think they could run the football. I think Riley Leonard and that offensive staff has finally figured it out, how to utilize him in that offense. And I think that's one thing about the transfer portals is you got to adapt to your team. You got to adapt to your style. And I think Notre Dame has done that. They're going to be a tough out for somebody in that 12-team playoff. Ohio State, Indiana. Indiana's been a really feel-good story the whole year. I did pick Ohio State, as everybody knows, to win the national championship. I picked them back in August, and I'm going to stay with it. But Indiana showed me something in the first half. The second half, I think Ohio State as they pulled away. Ohio State's really good. They shuffled that offensive line around a little bit. They'll have the Michigan game, and then they're going to get the rematch unless Michigan finds a way to pull off a stunner next week in Columbus. Ohio State's going to get that rematch with Oregon in the Big Ten title game, and they'll both be, the winner will get a bye in the playoff, and the loser is going to get a home game, probably playing in some snow if it's in Columbus. Penn State holds on yesterday, 1-point victory there over Minnesota. Tip your hat to PJ Fleck. I think Minnesota's had a great year. I know they're just over 500, but I think they've had a really good year this year. So let me see. I think we got Coach Cat on. Let's pull him on screen now. There he is. What's up, Coach?
What's going on, Rock? How are you, man?
Not much, man. I figured let's have you kick this thing off here today. Talk some Lake Forest football. Another solid year for you guys. And next week you guys start. What's this past week looked like for you guys?
Yeah, so the Division III playoffs changed this year. They added 8 more teams, and 8 of us got a first-round bye, and we happen to be one of those this week. So we had a bye this weekend, and Co College out of Iowa and Bethel University of Minnesota played yesterday, and so we'll be playing Bethel next week.
How much you know about them, Coach?
They're a really explosive offense. They've got 2,000-yard receivers, a young man named Joey Kittier at wide receiver who's probably one of the most electric players, a 3-time All-American at wide receiver up there. And then they've got one of the most stout defenses. They had 10 sacks yesterday in a playoff game and held a team 200 yards below their average rushing per game. So we're fit for a fight, and we're looking forward to it.
So, Coach, I think this is the 4th trip for you guys in NCAA school history for you guys to get to the Division III playoffs. How special has this year been for you guys?
Yeah, this one's been, unlike most, it's been there was a lot of stuff leading into it, and we had a bunch of guys stay for their 5th years. And so it's been a really easy year in terms of like leadership from the players, which is something I haven't really had an experience before. But I think that one of the things that's been really cool is the way that we've overcome some adversity. We've got a really talented player, AJ Jackson, who missed the last game of the year. He'll be back for the playoffs. But then we also had our starting quarterback miss the 2nd game of the year, which was against the defending conference champs. And we still, found a way to pull that one out. And so, the school's only gone 10-0 twice in the entire, 140 years of football that we've had here. And to do that this year was definitely really special.
Well, Coach, you talk about the team you're playing, how explosive they are. You guys aren't too shabby either. I think you guys are averaging about 42 points a game, which you guys are ranked nationally. But you're a defensive guy, aren't you, Coach? You guys are only giving up 14 a game.
So I was a defensive guy until COVID, and then I actually moved over to be the offensive coordinator coming out of COVID. And so, but I definitely still think like a defensive coach. The players always laugh that they know I'm never going to be a no huddle up tempo guy. They know I'm going to try to control the clock still, and they know I'm committed to running the football. And some like a team you used to like, we like to run 2 and 3 tight end sets and stuff like that. So we're not afraid to get in there and smash it up a little bit.
So, Coach, I know I've had you on before, and we've talked about Lake Forest, the university itself. But what makes that place so special?
It's a tight community, man. It's only 1,600 to 1,700 students, and so the relationships that I get to have across campus and that our players get to have are a lot more intimate than what you would get at maybe at a large university. I obviously laughed that we're like Hamilton, but we're in a Chicago suburb, and so because of that, you get a little bit more of the best of both worlds. I don't think that. Maybe the Hamilton kids, when you and I were growing up, were going to the Sangertown Square Mall to hang out just like we were here. They're going to downtown Chicago, taking internships, doing things like that. We're a super highly ranked academic institution, but the internship programs that we have been ranked in the top 15 in the country for about 10 straight years. So that's academically why we're special. And then the reason it's special for me is that I've been coming to the same office for, 19 years now. And I've finally broken in the office chair. I've got a backup one ready for when this one finally goes. But, they've supported me when we weren't a very good football program early on when we were turning this thing around. And now we're getting to reap the benefits of that at a pretty consistent level as a winning football program. So it's they believed in the journey. They didn't, quickly get rid of me after we went 2-8 those first 2 years. And they knew we were going to have some struggles. But now that we've turned it around, I think they've been pretty pleased with it as well.
When you mention that turnaround, because over the last 8 years, I think you guys have won 56 games or 58 games, something crazy like that. What's went into that turnaround? I know you mentioned the 2 tough years, and you're always going to have those tough years, and you're at a place where I agree with you, where nowadays it seems like in any sport, it's like, what have you done for me lately? If you have 2 or 3 bad years, they get rid of you. But what's been some of the keys of turning this program around?
Talented players. When I got here, the roster size was only about 60. We're now at about 120. And so when you get more players in here that are really talented, that helps. I think that we did shift our offensive philosophy. We've always been we're going to run the football. We moved more into the RPO game, more of the play action pass. We still hit the deep shots when we need to, but we found ways to spread teams, horizontally as much as vertically. The quarterback play in the last 10 years has definitely gotten significantly better, and we found places where we can go and recruit and have those niches. But I think that the consistency in the coaching staff helped as well. I think that when you turn coaches over, whether it's offensively, defensively, and you change the languages and things like that, there's a lot of things that get lost in translation. And for better or worse, our offensive playbook, the terminology has stayed the same for 20 years. Even with me changing offensive coordinators, the names stayed the same. Defensively, this was actually the first time in 19 years we had a different defensive playbook. So from the time that I got here, the words were the same. And, we had a defensive coordinator get a chance to be a head coach and didn't have anybody left on staff to carry on that terminology. So when we hired on the new coach, let him kind of do his thing. So I think that consistency really helped our guys know what the Lake Forest system was, and that has been really good for us.
How about from recruiting? I know sometimes it might be a little bit more challenging to recruit at the lower levels, but talk about you, because you're talking about some of the explosive guys you've had with the roster and the talent. How hard has it been to recruit, and how's your recruiting style changed over the years?
Recruiting style, to be honest, I don't think that's changed. I'm still a relationships guy, and I think that's one of the biggest things that people notice about us is that it's not, how quickly can we get you to the next step in the process? How quickly can we get you to campus? How quickly can we get you to apply? It's let's figure out if we're a right fit first. We did find a niche in about 10. We started recruiting Arizona. And if you look at our roster now, we've got 46 guys from Arizona on our team here in Chicago. And that's been one of those things that was probably I don't know how intentional it was, but it kind of was, and then it kind of grew. And now we are, we like to laugh where we say we're Arizona's Division III football program because there isn't one in state. And we're actually going to play the first Division III football game in the state of Arizona's history next year in opening game. So we're going to play a team from California out there. And it's a home game for us. So we, finding those players, you still got to go out. You got to beat the bushes and find the talent that maybe the Division I guys overlook and things like that. And that's kind of where we make our headway. And then there's still coaches all across the country that help us. I mean, our backup nose guards from CBA in Syracuse. We've got guys from Massachusetts, Texas, Florida. It's just a much more national recruiting, whereas I think, previously it was more like draw 5-hour radius around your school, and that's where you're going to get all your kids from.
And Coach, talk to us too, because I know it's a family affair too, right? You got your wife coaching at the university, and she's having a lot of success too. So just talk to us about how much it's become a family for you guys.
Yeah, she's actually at the local high school. So she's the field hockey and lacrosse coach at the high school, and they went to the state championship game this year. I know you get to watch a lot of field hockey through the year as well. And so, when you got two people that are coaches, I think the kids benefit significantly from it because they're always around your teams. They've got great role models, meaning my children get to see my players and her players. And then I think the other part is, we understand the stress moments. We understand when the breaking point is coming of like, look, I need 20 more minutes or 50 more minutes to do this before practice, or I need to watch more film. And I don't have time to go out to dinner tonight and things like that. And so I think the understanding is there. I think the hardest part is, when it's recruiting season and I'm on the road for 45 days and she's home being the super mom, super coach, and super teacher. And there's a reason why she gets all the flowers and the accolades from everybody around here, because they know that she's carrying the heavy load while I'm, gallivanting, trying to do home visits and stuff like that.
So, Coach, last thing I had for you, when you started this journey coaching at Lake Forest, and you mentioned the 2 down years, did you ever think you'd see the program having as much success now that you guys have had over the last 10 years?
I'd hoped. I don't know that I saw it. I didn't have the magic 8 ball that said it was going to happen, but I knew we were doing things right. And I think that, based on just the experiences look, you grow up in Rome, New York, you learn how to run a football program from Tom Hoke and Mize and all those guys. And you learn how to run a basketball program from Coach Evans and Coach Baldwin and those guys. And so you learn how to do things right. And when I went to college, same kind of deal. Started to pick up information from the guys that were coaching me there on how to do it. And then my first couple of years coaching at Glenville State with Paul Schaffner, who's now over at Cortland winning a national championship. I mean, that guy, they taught me how to do things right. And because I learned how to do it right, I knew that it was only a matter of time. If we could get the right people in the boat talent-wise, the things of the program, the structure, the culture that we were creating, that was all in the right place. And, I don't know that I thought we'd win 3 out of 4 conference championships and be in the national playoffs that often, because that just hadn't been done here before. But, the fact that we have is not really a surprise to me from a cultural perspective.
Well, Coach, listen, good luck. And maybe after the season, we get some more time. We'll have you back on, chat about the season and everything else. We're pulling for you this way, man. We're proud of you.
Love to. Appreciate it, Rock. Keep doing what you're doing, man.
All right, man. Good luck next week.
Thanks.
So that was Coach Jim Catanzaro, a fellow teammate of mine, and he has done a fantastic job in building that program there. He's been on with me a couple times before, and just to hear him talk about how passionate he is for that university. And he had a couple down years, like he said, but the university was patient with him, and he's been able to turn that thing around, and now he sees himself back in the Division III playoffs. So as I'm talking to him, my light went off over here. So give me a minute here. I got to fix my lights. So that's the fun thing about podcasting, is I can fix my lighting here at any time. I should have charged them. There we go. So sorry about that. Little technical difficulties here, but we'll move on. So at about 9:30, we'll have Coach Schmidt's going to join us, the Whitesboro Head Football Coach, talk about their past game against Horseheads, and they will play next weekend in the state Final Four. So we'll talk to Coach. I'm excited to talk to him. And then right at about 9:50, we'll talk some RFA Field Hockey with Coach Mackenzie Welter on a magical season for RFA Field Hockey, as they went all the way to the state Final Four. So we'll talk to her here in just a little bit. So if you're following the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, if you're following me on LinkedIn, wherever you listen to, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, I appreciate it. If you have any comments for the show, you can put them in there. And then one of the weeks, I may try it out on Wednesday. I was going to try this before, is to take call-ins. So if you wanted to call in and participate, ask some questions, you can. So maybe we'll try that on Wednesday night as I bring back Chalk Talk for another episode. So we were talking some college football, Ohio State, Indiana. This was a game that was all the hype on Indiana and Kurt Signetti. And I was one of them that said I thought Indiana's schedule was down. I don't think it was a really great schedule. I think they were like 106 in strength of schedule. And people said, well, they haven't played anybody and they're not going to get in the playoff. I still think yesterday, with Ole Miss losing, with Alabama going down, with Texas A&M going down, unless Indiana lays an egg next week at home to Purdue in a rivalry game. If you haven't seen Purdue's terrible. Purdue's really struggled this year. Indiana wins that game. You're not going to keep an 11-1 Big Ten team out. So I think Indiana's in. I think the Big Ten's going to get 4 teams, right? Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana will get in. And then you'll get Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, and Indiana, the 4 teams, from the Big Ten. And I don't know who you're going to get from the SEC. With Alabama going down and Ole Miss going down, I think that probably helps Tennessee. I think Tennessee's probably in right now. And A&M with that horrendous loss last night to Auburn in 4 overtimes. So you'd have to think that they're probably out unless they get a huge win over Texas next week. Texas beat Kentucky 31-14. Texas in the SEC. Texas really hasn't played anybody either in the SEC. They've kind of skated around that schedule this year. Not many people, I don't think, are talking about that. but they haven't really played anybody. But right now they're in. Penn State 26-25 over Minnesota. Notre Dame throttles Army 49-14. Alabama falls to Oklahoma 24-3. Think about that score, 24-3. Miami beats Wake Forest 42-14. Ole Miss falls to Florida 24-17. Georgia 59-21 over UMass. Tennessee over UTEP 56-0. Boise State beat Wyoming 17-13. SMU over Virginia. If you remember, if you didn't tune in to listen to me this past week, I said I had SMU winning the ACC. I have SMU beating Miami in the ACC title game, but I'll talk more next week on that. Kenny Dillingham, if you don't know about who he is, he's the youngest head coach in the country. He's got Arizona State at 9-2 right now, controls their destiny in the Big 12. I don't know who's going to win the Big 12. But Arizona State is in if they get by Arizona next week. They beat BYU 28-23. Auburn, as I said, 4 overtimes, beat Texas A&M 43-41. Coach Prime, yes, Coach Prime, they fell 37-21. Defensively, they looked like the Colorado defense from last year. They could not stop the run. And this Kansas team, as I talked about too, the last 3 games, they've beaten 3 ranked teams. It hasn't happened before. They got off to an 0-5 start. They had some injuries. Jalen Daniels was hurt. Neal was hurt. They had some injuries, but they're healthy again. Clemson beat the Citadel. South Carolina, who I think is one of the hottest teams in the country, they beat Wofford 56-12. And then a couple of the late scores, Iowa State over Utah, Missouri over Mississippi State, and the Fighting Illini 38-31. And we talk about that Colorado game because everybody knows I've been on Coach Prime's wagon since he got this job. And there's still a chance that they get in. They got to play Oklahoma State at home next week. They got to get some help. I think either Houston has to beat BYU next week, or I think Arizona has to beat Arizona State for Colorado to get in. But they wasted that one, man. All they had to do was win yesterday over Kansas. Then they got to beat Oklahoma State, and then they were in the Big 12 playoff. So right now, it's not a lock that if Arizona State gets through, it's not a lock that they get a bye in the college football playoff. That's not how it works. But we'll talk more about that on Wednesday. But I want to give a shout out. I put it on Facebook. I want to give a shout out to a friend of the show, New York Mills alum, Kevin Cahill, who was one of the best athletes in the Mohawk Valley that I'd ever seen this way, is the head coach at Lehigh. Lehigh beat Lafayette yesterday in one of the oldest rivalries in college football. It's the 160th meeting between Lehigh and Lafayette. And just in year 2 under Coach Cahill, last year they were 2-9. Well, this year, 9-2. They beat Lafayette to win the Patriot League championship, and now they will play. Oh, well, they'll wait to see who they play, but they're going to be part of it. It's the Division I AA FCS playoffs that'll start next week. So we'll see where Lehigh gets a draw. But congratulations to Coach. Job well done. I don't think anybody saw that turnaround coming as quickly as some might have seen. He's got a great coaching staff. He's got Coach Rich Nagy, who was the defensive coordinator at Fordham when I was there as his defensive coordinator. Coach Dan Hunt, who was the longtime coach at Colgate, is his offensive coordinator. He's got a great coaching staff there, guys with head coaching experience. And Kevin's done a fantastic job, and I know the community this way is continuing to support and pull for Coach Cahill. So, Coach, I appreciate you. And when the season's over, we'll have Coach Cahill on to talk about his season this year. And they're young, so they're not going away anytime soon. The other one I wanted to talk about, too, a little bit, I don't know if anybody saw the Fighting Illini Rutgers game last night. So, Schiano called a timeout late in that game with like seconds left to go in that game because he thought that the Fighting Illini were going to attempt a game-winning field goal. So he calls the timeout, and then after the timeout, the Illini came out and went for it, and they threw a 40-yard touchdown with about 4 seconds left in the game to beat Rutgers. And the Fighting Illini moved to 8-3, and Rutgers is at 6-5. They're bowl eligible, but what a horrible turn of events there. That game, Rutgers had this game in the bag last night, and they fell. So And then the other game, I've talked about Coach Billy Napier all year round, and he's been the story on my show the last 3 weeks. Is I know people are going to say 6-5. The expectations at Florida is not 6-5. The expectations are national championships. But if there's anybody that's done a better job this year in America than Coach Billy Napier, find him. I know you got Coach Prime and Signetti. One of the two will probably win Coach of the Year. It'll probably be Signetti, who's going to go 11-1 and make the college football playoff. But the job that Coach Napier has done, remind you, probably after the second week of the season, people had him getting fired. It was the students, everybody had signs saying fire Billy Napier. The media, that's all everybody was talking about was, well, maybe you bring Urban Meyer back. Maybe Ryan Day makes a switch and goes to Florida. Like, they're naming all these guys for the job. And all Billy Napier does is put his head down, and his kids rally behind him. He's got probably the best freshman quarterback in the country. That Florida over the next 2 to 3 years, and I'm pulling for Billy Napier big time. They're going to be really good. They should be really good with the talent that is around them. But if you watch Florida play over the last 2 to 3 weeks, and you see the energy that they're playing with, they're playing really, really hard for Coach Napier. And I'll tell you what, the game yesterday, if you watch some of that game against Ole Miss, they didn't look like a 5-5 team. I would have said if I was watching that game without knowing the rankings and without knowing the records, I would have said Florida's probably the 8-2 team, not Ole Miss. And I feel sorry for Lane Kiffin, because I thought Lane Kiffin had a team this year. They spent some money in the portal. I thought this was the year Lane, with this 12-team playoff, could get there. And I thought, as of 2 weeks ago, I thought they were the most dangerous team that was going to be in the college football playoff. And now people are going to say, well, Lane, if he can't win this year in Ole Miss, he's never going to win there. And I don't know if I agree with that, but this was definitely the year that Lane Kiffin was really set up with the portal and the amount of money that they spend. But yesterday, this didn't look. Jackson Dart didn't play well yesterday for Ole Miss. It was horrible to see, because he's had a great career at Ole Miss. But again, if you watch Florida, can a 7-5 coach, because I think they play Florida State next week, they're going to hammer Florida State. I don't know where that game's at. I didn't even look at the schedule. But they're going to beat Florida State. I will be really surprised if Florida State beats Florida. So now you get them at 7-5. They win a rivalry game, and they're going to get a bowl game. So I just think, tip your hat to what he's been able to do. And, him and his team, I mean, that's the whole key in any sport. If you can hang on to your players and your players play hard for you, that's a sign of a good football coach, no matter what the record is. And I think if you look at Kansas and Lance Leipold, I think Coach Leipold's a great coach. I think he'll get a better job. What he's done there at Kansas over the last, 2 or 3 years has been fantastic. But they started off 0-5. And now here they are. They got to win next week. And I would imagine it's Kansas State, because it's rivalry week. They'll probably win that game and go to a bowl game. After the season, how that season started for that program, to have them turn around and now playing for a bowl game and to end it at a 500, that's crazy in my eyes. So let's go to Coach. I think we got Coach here in the waiting room. There he is. What's happening, Coach?
How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you this morning?
Doing good. Tired, but I'm doing good.
I know. I hear you. Well, listen, congratulations, and thanks for taking the time this morning to jump on me. I appreciate it.
No problem.
So, Coach, I know when I talked to you before the season started, I think all coaches know that you guys had some returners, you guys had some newcomers, but Whitesboro always just reloads; they never rebuild. And I want you to kind of just take me through from the start of the season to where you guys are now, and just how far this program and this team's come this year.
Yeah, fortunately, we had a great season last year, and we returned a lot of experience, which is a good thing. When you get a chance to play 14 games, that's almost 2 seasons for some kids. So we got a lot of experience coming back. And I think last season just, raised the bar for Whitesboro even higher than it was. And the expectations are now higher. And it just carried over into the offseason. We had a great offseason. This team has a great competitive nature. We don't have to ask them to work hard. It's in their DNA. They come to work every day and they do what's asked of them and more. So just a great group to be around and fortunate to be coaching them.
Coach, every team's different, and every year when you look at the different teams that you've had over the years there at Whitesboro, how is this team different than say last year's team? You mentioned the DNA, and I've always said this even when I played Whitesboro. All the kids always had a special DNA that not many kids have and programs have. But what's different about this team compared to some of the past teams?
I think this is the most, I've been doing this for 16 or 17 years and fortunate to coach a lot of great kids, great athletes. But I think as a team, this is the most balanced team that we've had as far as big up front and physical, but most athletic. We have athletes all over the place. We have more speed than we've ever had here at Whitesboro. So on offense, it's allowed us to do some more things than we usually are able to do. And defensively, we fly around. So I would say that this is the most athletic team I've been fortunate to coach, but also probably the best front that we've had in a long time. So it's a great team. In high school football, I say this all the time. You don't get to recruit kids, so you kind of dance with your date. And when you get a group like this, you got to take advantage of it. And, we're throwing the ball more than we ever had in the past. And that's not always the case. There's many years where a lot of people say, why don't you throw it more? And, well, you got to have guys that can protect it, a quarterback that can throw it, and guys that can go get it. And last year we had a lot of athletes as well. And we were able to do that. But when we put our 4 receivers out there, I don't think they can key on any one. So it's allowed us to be a lot more balanced. And it's just a great group to coach. And as a coach, that isn't able to recruit when you do get a group like this and you're allowed to open up the playbook, it's really fun because we see things on the internet and we see teams doing things on Saturday and Sunday. And as a coach, you want to try and do everything, but sometimes you're just handcuffed and you can't. And this year, fortunately, we're able to do a lot of things because of the personnel that we have.
Coach, talk to us about, you got a veteran group, a lot of seniors on this team. I think you got a lot of juniors on this team. And coming off the year that you had last year, listen, Whitesboro is always going to compete for a Section 3 title. And I think the goal is always Section 3 title. Let's get back into the state playoffs. But talk about just how much the experience helps you guys, having some of the veterans back and even some of the juniors that got some playing time from a year ago.
Yeah, it's important. Experience for the coaching staff is important. Playing in big games and playing long season for the players, it's really important. And like I said, when you can play 14 games in a season, some teams are handing in gear after their 8th game. So we got 6 more weeks than most teams, and that experience is very, very important when it comes to a postseason like this that we're having. So it's really important. You know how to handle long bus trips. You know how to handle pre-game stuff when you only have 20 or 30 minutes to warm up. All those little things matter when you're in the state playoffs. So experience is very important.
And Coach, talk to us a little bit about the Horseheads game. I think the last time Horseheads was that far was probably the year I graduated, I think back in 97 or 98. But talk to us a little bit about that game. They got on the board first. It was a tight game at halftime, and you guys had some key plays the second half, and then you guys had the goal-to-goal stand in that fourth quarter. But just talk to us about some of the ups and downs of that game.
Yeah, Section 4 down there, Binghamton area, that's probably the most physical part of the state. They just produce physical football teams down there, and that's what they gave us. I thought they matched our physicality. We knew on tape that they would be good in a challenge offensively for our defense. A lot of wing T concepts, misdirection, quarterback that was able to throw the ball, with and without play action. So they were a challenge and probably our toughest competition other than Corcoran this year. Dealt with some adversity early. We haven't been down much all year. And I like the way the kids responded. And I thought our defensive staff made great adjustments in the second half. And the kids really bought into it. And for the most part, other than that big play late in the fourth quarter when we were in 2-man and they grabbed one over us, I felt like we shut them down. And then offensively, we just kind of leaned on our linemen, went on some long, 13-play and a 15-play drive, which was important, and really controlled the clock. But I thought we did a good job of shutting them down in the second half. They were a physical team, a well-coached team. They did some things formationally that kind of hurt us in the first half, and we really had to make some adjustments at halftime, and I thought the kids handled it really well. But can't say enough about Horseheads and how tough they were, how well coached they were. And like I said, anytime you play a Section 4 team, you better buckle up.
Yeah, that's for sure. I always used to say a lot of our Section 3 teams over the years have struggled with some of the Section 4 teams just because of that, Coach, because of the physicality that they bring. Coach, you guys have had some special players at Whitesboro over the years for a long time, and I want you to talk to us about your quarterback, Memphis. And when, I had to go back, and as I followed you guys throughout the year, I said, wait a minute, this Whitesboro usually runs behind that big offensive line, and this year I'm looking like this kid's got over 1,600 yards passing, and he's still running the football too. Talk to us about how special he is.
Yeah, he's a special kid. He's actually my nephew. He's
Yep.
my sister's oldest kid, and he's a rare breed. He's an all-state linebacker, will linebacker. He's going to Cortland State, was one of their number one recruits to play linebacker. And you don't see many hard-hitting linebackers that can be a dual threat quarterback. And he really is. He's very mobile for being a thick kid. He can run behind his pads, but he can throw it as well. He broke the school record for most touchdowns in a season. And a lot of that has to do with our line up front protecting him. He's only been sacked once all year. And then obviously the special receivers around him. But he's a rare breed. He's tough as nails. I remember his freshman year, we were calling him up to varsity just to kind of get some reps. So he came to the CBA game to warm up. And he actually catching the ball while warming up, he broke his finger on his throwing hand, and he ended up needing surgery like 3 weeks later. But the next day against CBA and JV, he threw for like 300 yards with a broken finger on his throwing hand. He's just a tough kid. He's dealing with a shoulder injury right now, an AC joint sprain on his left shoulder, and you wouldn't know it by the way he plays. He's tough as nails physically and mentally, and he's a real special kid, and we're going to miss him. And, Kyle was amazing and an unbelievable quarterback. And to have another quarterback that kind of can do some of the same stuff, it's just an honor and a privilege to be in that situation as a coach. But he's a great kid, mentally and physically tough. And I got to say this, I hope the kid knows I love him, but I am really hard on him. I'm extremely hard on him. I feel bad for my own kids my own personal kids, because I'm tough, especially on my family. And I'm really tough on him, but he handles it and he gets it done.
Yeah, I would say I'm the same way, but I think that's how I was. My father was tough on me growing up when I played, and now I'm tough on my own son who got a chance to play for me. So that's special, Coach. Always special to have family part of the journey with you guys, and I know how much that means to you. So, Coach, the last few things I have for you. So you guys are back in the state Final Four. You guys got all the way to that state finals last year against Summers, who's back in it again. What's it going to take to get back there? I know you guys are playing a really good Brighton team this coming week, and they're explosive on offense. They're good defensively, but you get this far, Coach, they're all good, right?
Yeah. I mean, all the teams at this point are good. They got guys. They're well coached. You're not going to out-scheme anyone. You're not going to trick anyone. You got to line up and play football. It really comes back to the basics and being mentally prepared. We always say the most important part on defense is have your feet and eyes right, be in the right spot. And we'll be concentrating on that this week. But I watched the Brighton and Sweet Home game yesterday. We weren't sure who we were going to play, but about 3 minutes into the game, I knew it was going to be Brighton, and we started getting some tape and breaking them down. And they're a lot like us on offense. They want to run the football. They have the ability to throw, but they lean on their running game. And on defense, they're very well coached. They're disciplined. They fly around. They have a linebacker who's a lot like Memphis, and he also plays on the offensive side of the ball, number 22. He's a stud. But they're a very good team. They've handled everyone this year, and we know we're going to have a challenge. It will be our toughest challenge this year, but when you get to the state Final Four, there's not going to be any easy games. So we'll be ready. The coaches didn't sleep much last night. We're up early this morning. We got practice tonight, and we'll be ready to rock. I'll guarantee that.
Well, Coach, it's been fun following you guys this year, and I appreciate everything you always do for me when I reach out to you about jumping on. I love talking Whitesboro football. Even being a Rome guy, I still like talking Whitesboro football, and You've had great success there, and we're pulling for you. And why don't we do this again soon?
Yeah, appreciate you having me on. I'm just glad this time it's after a win.
I know. Hey, Coach, in my message, I said after you guys win.
Yeah, I know. I like that confidence.
I didn't want to jinx it, but
Yeah, I like that confidence, and I was confident too. But you don't take anyone for granted. You know what I mean? You see upsets all the time, and we kind of escaped the last one. Kind of let them back in the game, so you don't take anyone for granted, and you go play your game. But anyone can win on any day.
That's right. Well, Coach, listen, good luck, and we'll do it again soon.
All right, thanks for having me on. Have a great day.
You got it, Coach. Thank you. So that was Coach Schmidt of Whitesboro, he's always kind enough to me. He's always good to me. I've always reached out to him, and I enjoy. Listen, I say this all the time. In my time growing up, obviously I played for Rome and Coach Hoke and Coach Bruce and Coach Mize, but there was two programs in this area that were two of the best programs in the state of New York, and it was RFA Whitesboro for a long time. Now, I only played against Whitesboro one year, my ninth grade year. We played Whitesboro in the Dome, actually, and I think that's when Whitesboro was AA. But a program that's done it the right way, and when I had a chance this year at the modified level to coach against Whitesboro, they have a ton of kids coming up, and we were fortunate enough to beat Whitesboro this year at the lower level. And again, if you ask me some of the programs that you want to try to mimic and you want to try to have the success, in this area, Dodgeville is always one of those programs that's been around for a long time that's had great success in this area. Whitesboro's that program who every year they're competing for a Section 3 title, and that's the norm. And when you see those kids, and I'll agree with Coach here, they are huge up front. I think it's the biggest front I've seen from Whitesboro in a long time, but they got good kids. He talks about his nephew, and those kids it's football all year round. And even for some of those kids that are playing a different sport, they're still finding ways in the weight room. And that's something that carries on. And that's why they've had the success that they've had. And it's nice to see Coach Schmidt having the continued success and keeping that program going in the right direction. So best of luck, Coach. And again, we'll do it again soon. And to all the Whitesboro fans out there, if you were tuning in here this morning to listen to Coach, I appreciate you following me. So up next, we're going to continue this thing here we're going to talk some RFA Field Hockey. Now, I always joke because obviously I grew up watching field hockey because my sister played here in Rome, and my sister's always had the bragging rights with me here because her senior year team went undefeated and won a state championship, and she still got the plaque outside the stadium, and she can to this day still rubs it in, saying that I never won one because my team got beat in the state championship. I think it was 95 or 96, which was my junior year. We got beat to Roosevelt High School in the state championship game, which was a really good game. And we had a really good group of kids that year. So she's got the bragging rights. But I can honestly say this. I probably can do play-by-play for field hockey. That's how much field hockey that I've watched over the years. Now, I will say this. I still don't know what all the whistles are. I know corners. I know what all that stuff is. But I still don't know what all the whistles are. But I've watched a lot of field hockey over the years. And I pulled up an interesting number last night. And I did text my sister to see if my numbers were right because I was looking at some stats here on RFA Field Hockey. And I'll go over this with Coach Welter here in just a little bit. Over the last 5 years, RFA Field Hockey overall record is 73-11, and they are 38-0 in the TVL. And I think my sister said the last time they beat him was back in 2019 or 2020. I think it was 19 because I pulled the last 5 years. And credit Linda Harjung for getting this program going in the right direction and turning this thing into what it's been over the last so many years, and Mackenzie and others that have carried the torch here in Rome. Because when you think of RFA Field Hockey is well known across not just the area, across the state. And it's been a program that Coach Harjung took it to another level and built this program from the ground up. And now to see Coach Welter taking it to another level is great. They got a lot of young talent coming back. So I think RFA Field Hockey is in good hands here over the next so many years. So we'll talk to her in just a little bit. If you're just tuning in, you missed Coach Jim Catanzaro, who's an RFA alum, former teammate of mine in football and basketball. He kicked things off for me this morning, talking about Lake Forest University as they punched their ticket to the Division III playoffs. It'll start next week. And then we just followed that up with Whitesboro football head coach Curtis Schmidt, who they punched their ticket to the state Final Four, which they will play next week. And it should be a really, really, really good game. So, and I had to joke with them because I just think of all the years I used to watch Whitesboro football. I would say, boy, they just run the football. It's like you get behind that big offensive line, you know what plays are coming. You just got to be able to stop it. And then comes his nephew, the quarterback this year, who's thrown for over 1,600 yards and 24 touchdown passes, I think 25 touchdown passes, something crazy like that. And you say, wow. And especially after the year they had last year, right, getting all the way to the state championship, some of the great teams that they had. And I said going into the year, I thought this was probably one of the best Whitesboro teams that they've had, just well balanced all around, that they can throw it, they can run it, they can do a lot of different things on both sides of the ball, and that's really paid off this year for Coach. So we'll talk some RFA Field Hockey here in just a little bit. I want to make sure I give a shout out to at the Rome Sports Hall of Fame yesterday and today. Yesterday they honored the 8U team from this year that went undefeated, won the Tri-Valley championship. They honored the 8U team yesterday, and then they will honor the 10U and 12U team. Our 12U team from last year, and the 10U team won the Tri-Valley championship. We got beat in the, I think it was either the regional or state game last year to I think it was either like Syracuse East or somewhere like that beat us last year. So the Rome Sports Hall of Fame's going to honor both teams this afternoon. So I want to thank the Rome Sports Hall of Fame for making that happen. And I want to thank Stan DeCosti for Colgate for the coaches show this past year. It was a lot of fun, and I want to thank Coach for sending me some gear, and we look forward to doing it again next year. We're going to roll with Chalk Talk this week on Wednesday night. I got to see what time. We'll probably keep it the same time, probably around 7 o'clock. And then we'll see next Sunday. We'll have the Mohawk Valley Sportswatch next Sunday with the holidays, approaching. And then we'll get into the 12-team playoff. A lot of fun stuff happening. But I want to make sure I thank everybody for following the show as always. So let's see. I think we got Coach on. Let's see if we can grab her on here. Hey, Coach, how are you? Can you hear me?
Hey, I'm good. Yeah, thanks for having me on this morning.
No problem. I appreciate you taking the time here this morning to jump on. I appreciate it. So, Coach, I want to start with a couple things. I want to start with a couple things for you here to start. And I was talking to Curtis Schmidt, the Whitesboro football coach, and I was asking him the same question: is when you guys started this year, when preseason got underway in August. I know a lot of people were saying this has the year that RFA Field Hockey could have a really good year with this team, a lot of good players. Did you know when you guys started the season that this was going to be a special group for you?
Yes, we did. We returned our entire starting lineup from last year except for our goalkeeper. So we had a very veteran and experienced team, a team that obviously won the sectional title last year and got a taste of the regional play, getting to see, a high-level team from outside of our section. And at the end of the season last year, when we lost against Windsor in that regional game, there was just a sense of hunger amongst the girls that were returning. They knew right off the bat, and they said it, I think, even on the bus ride home from VVS, that they wanted to get back to regionals for this upcoming year. And right from day one in preseason, the girls were determined. They knew that they wanted to make it to the state tournament. They set their goal even higher than just the regional game, and they worked hard. They worked for each other. They worked with each other. And it was evident from the start of our season in practice all the way through to our postseason play when, there were times we were down by a goal and this team just didn't give up.
Yeah, Coach, and talk to us a little bit about, the team, because most of your team, I believe, is made up of, I think you had 7 seniors
Yep.
It's made up of a lot of upperclassmen, but a lot of talented younger players, coming up as well. If you can talk to us a little bit about the team, and then if you can talk to us a little bit about, you had a couple special sisters that were really good in the McMahon sisters. So if you can talk about that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So our team was definitely led by our senior class. It comprised of our 3 captains, Izzy and Fee McMahon, and then Kara Mecca, but also the other 4 seniors that made up that class, Olivia Benson, Christiana Clark, Alexa Thompson, and Danny Kopek. And that class in and of itself, yes, they were starters and they brought a lot of skill to the field, but they also brought a lot of intangible things that as a coach you want to see in your leadership group. They were hardworking, they were supportive, they were positively cheering for each other and their teammates. They had a mental toughness that did not allow them to give up in moments of adversity. And when that's what your leadership group is bringing to the field, your underclassmen have no choice but to follow along in that. And they did. We had some young starting players, 8th grader Sloan Sestito,
Yep.
Who jumped right in and joined that core group of leaders. We had a couple in our backfield, Sydney Mendiola and Ella 80, back on defense. And then our goalkeeper this year, Brooke Benson, a sister to senior Olivia Benson, who she didn't get tested much early on in the year, but when it mattered most in postseason, she certainly rose to the occasion and kept us in the games.
And Coach, before you came on, I was going back in years here, and I was talking about, the job Coach Harjung has done to get this RFA Field Hockey program built from the ground up, and to see the success it's continued to have. And I pulled some numbers over the last 5 years, which I think are absolutely crazy. Is the last 5 years, RFA Field Hockey is 73-11 overall and 38-0 in the TVL league. That is absolutely crazy. But it's awesome to see. And I've watched a lot of field hockey over my years, and I was jokingly saying I think I can probably do play-by-play of field hockey because I've watched so much of it in my time, but I still don't understand all the whistles. But talk to us a little bit about the program in general, just to see how far it's come in the last 20 years, where RFA Field Hockey isn't just known around this area, they're known across the state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Coach Harjung certainly left behind a legacy, some very big shoes to fill when Coach Reese and I stepped over and took over the program. So, it came in knowing that there was that pressure because of the fact the program had been to the state tournament multiple times. We had a state championship under our belt. We have now parents of current players that were on the state championship team, so they understand that sacrifice and dedication and all the traditions that come with playing for RFA Field Hockey. So to be able to keep that legacy going, and it took us a little bit of time to get there, but it was certainly our goal, to get to the state tournament. And I'm thrilled we were able to do it, 9 years after taking over. But it's not without the fact that we have had great families and great players come through that have bought into what it means to be an RFA Field Hockey player, and, always striving to be better. And, not just in terms of things on the field, but just in terms of character and representing the program well within the community.
And Coach, did you feel any pressure when you got the job, knowing that it's had so much success over the years and with the rich tradition and the history? Was there any more pressure on you when you got this job to keep that thing going?
I don't know how there couldn't have been. I mean, trying to fill the shoes of Coach Harjung, those are some pretty big shoes to fill. But, I think for me personally, having been somebody who played for Coach Harjung and just has an extreme passion for putting on the orange and black jersey, I wanted to come back and see the program to continue to do well. And, my hope was that I could leave it better than, where I found it. And not that I found it in a bad place by any means, but just to keep raising the bar. That was the goal. And, I wanted to keep the traditions going. So I think I felt some maybe internal pressure to make sure those things were happening over time. And, it certainly has not been easy. There's always been hurdles and obstacles, as any coach feels when they're in that coaching position. But I'm thankful that I've got Coach Reese by my side, standing with me on the sidelines, supporting everybody within the program, and to have parents that are up in the stands and supporting what we're doing with things on the field within the team. And also, I'd be amiss if I didn't recognize our JV coach, Coach Zapovigna, and our modified coach, Coach Salz, because really the program starts at the base and it builds up to where we are at the varsity level. And they've done an incredible job with, believing in the philosophy that we have tried to instill at the varsity level with some of those traditions, the teamwork, the hard work, the dedication, some of that mental and physical sacrifice for others so that the team as a whole can be successful.
And Coach, last thing is you talk about, the tradition and all that, but I think, to see the community rally behind you guys and the support that they've given you guys over the years. And, you guys had the send off, you had the police escort and all that, which was really, really, really cool. Just talk to us a little bit about the support from the community and how much that's meant to you guys.
It still gives me chills thinking about it, to be honest. Last Friday when we left to go to the state tournament, that cheering squad that we had outside of RFA, I walked out behind all the team, and just to stand back and kind of watch that, to realize that these girls have made such an impact, not just on the community, but I want to be a little more specific in terms of the younger generation, right? The ones that are in elementary school right now that are looking up to these girls and saying, I want to be like, number 10, or I want to be like number 23, or I want to be like number 2, because yes, they're skilled players, but they're great people. And, they want to be a part of that tradition and that success that has been around for years. And I still cannot believe the amount of support in terms of, donations that came in to allow us to be able to take that coach bus down to Poughkeepsie for states. It happened so fast, kind of mind blowing in some ways. And we are forever thankful for that type of support to help us be able to give the girls the best possible experience, because it does take a community. It's not just things that happen within our program, but it's also, those around us that rally for us, that support us in all these different ways so that we can continue on this great tradition.
Well, Coach, it was a great ride for you and the team, and you made the community proud. And I know this program's not going away anytime soon with the young talent you have coming up and on that current team. So congratulations. We're proud of you, and thanks for a great season.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks, Coach.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
So that was RFA Field Hockey Coach Mackenzie Welter, who, again, I had to do those numbers last night, and I had to shoot them to my sister to see if I was accurate. She said yes. 73-11 over the last 5 years, 38-0 in the TVL over the last 5 years. So Coach has done a great job and made the community proud. So again, I want to make sure I thank Coach Catanzaro. I want to make sure I thank Coach Schmidt and Mackenzie for jumping on with me here this morning. If you missed it, I'll have the playback up here today, probably later this afternoon. Again, I want to thank the Rome Sports Hall of Fame for having our 8U, 10U, and 12U Pop Warner teams being honored today at the Rome Sports Hall of Fame for great seasons last year. So I want to make sure I thank them. Make sure to tune in Wednesday night as I bring back Chalk Talk, and I'll be talking nothing but college football. So on behalf of the entire crew at the Mohawk Valley Sports Watch, Coach Pags, Coach Medicis, the Statman, and myself, thanks for tuning in this morning to the Mohawk Valley Sports Watch. Have a